I wanted to make a video for the unknown caster, and this was a guy that was on the North Santiam River a couple weeks ago, and he was making some beautiful casts with a long line. And he didn't know anybody was watching, but I was just impressed because he was way out away from his car. He was way downstream. He was alone, and he was, you know, he was kind of in a steelhead run, but I knew he was more just practicing, or at least practicing with his fishing. And I like seeing a guy who's dedicated and totally into it, which he was. I could just tell. And so some of the things I see really advanced casters doing that I don't see intermediate casts is a few things I saw him do that could be improved on. And you know, we're all in the same boats. I have a lot of things that need to be improved on. One of the things you can do is be a machine. You have to figure out the stroke you want, and then you have to repeat that and groove that over and over. So as far as being like a machine, figure out how you want to cast and stick with that, and don't change it up different every single time. So if you want a single spey with these long lines, decide if you're gonna lift and rotate, or if you're gonna lift and push out and rotate. How you're gonna do it. I like to keep this elbow right here. That keeps me grounded. It keeps me pushing out with my bottom hand, and it keeps me in a straight jacket, so there's not a lot of room for error. And another thing you can do if you're having trouble casting these long lines is you can cast with your body. See, I can cast with my body. This is a Beulah arrowhead. It's plenty long. You can't scandy cast this thing. You got to do a traditional spey cast. And so what you can do is you can cast using your body. So you lift it and rotate. See, I'm getting beautiful loops, and I'm just, my body is casting my body and my bottom hand in conjunction with a short top hand stroke. See, everything's in tight. So that's one trick you can do. Now I'm back to casting right-handed because my camera thing is flipped on backwards, but you'll see I get a little fast on the lift. Lift should be a little slower, but this is the general idea. See, my elbow stays tight right here, and that just makes it so the bottom hand moves and the body moves. It rotates and it rocks back. And the other thing I would say, unknown to caster guy, if you're getting sticky anchors, cast before it touches down. Like lift, sweep, and right as the line's gonna touch down, cast. And usually, if you're getting sticky anchors, usually that'll help you. And it's surprising how early you can cast these long lines. Like you can see it a foot or two off the water, lift, sweep, cast. I blew my anchor. But the idea is, but I'm not getting sticky. I can cast right about touchdown with this for some reason. I always can. If I'm with my comp rod, I have to wait for it. I can't wait for it to touch down. With this rod, I can. So, hope that helps. Because if you cast with your arms, you're going to be so inconsistent. Cast with your core. The other thing is anchor placement, make it the same every time. So with a single spey, you don't want it landing here one time and then here one time. You want it landing to the side and kind of in front of you. But the important thing is it's got to land the same place every time. Every time, get that anchor to land the same place. And I am not that good with my left hand. I have to cast left hand because of the wind and the people and all the stuff. But if I use my body and I have consistent anchor placement and keep that rod tip going up in the sweep, especially when it passes my shoulder. That's definitely probably the trickiest part of casting these longer lines. If your rod tip does not go up throughout the sweep and the drift up to the forward cast, that creates the bottom leg of your D-loop, and it's so easy to dip that rod back here, and that lays the bottom leg of your D-loop in the water, and then you get stick or you get a ocean wave shaped D-loop. That's probably the trickiest part of long line casting. You know, you make those little mistakes with a Scandi line and you can get away with it, but with the longer lines, they just will tell on you. So it's great to get an extra pair of eyes watching your cast or video your cast, to video your D-loop and make sure you're not coming up and then windshield wipering that rod tip. Keep it coming up throughout the cast. Consistent anchor placement. If that's 12 o'clock, I want my anchor to be like at 1 o'clock there and out in front, around within a rod's length away. You can get away with further out with the longer leaders and longer line, depending on the line. So, and the other thing is, be authoritative with the rod. You know, it's all about, yeah, we make the rod do the work and we keep our hands loose and we do all the cute soft stuff. But if you ever see a super good, like a comp caster, and a comp caster, what people don't understand, these guys are all about technique, and one of the reasons they have to be all, you know, people think, well, they just huck it as far as they can, but that requires technique, requires proper anchor placement. And you ever see one of them get in trouble? Say they're under timed event, so they need to make their cast, judge the wind. They got to get a 40-degree angle change, and that is no easy task with a 70-foot line. I mean, that requires so much technique that most fishermen would be lucky just to pull the cast off and get a score, any score. Just getting a score is a feat, you know, even if it's not that great. You do all 4 casts, deal with the wind, deal with the time, deal with the 40-degree angle change, you know, Spey-O-Rama. That is tough for anybody. So what I'm saying, if you see one of them get in trouble, say something goes wrong and they have to get their line back in position to cast for the 40-foot angle change, they don't go boop. They grab that thing and they frickin' manhandle it, and they have some authority. You got to have authority with your rod. Like if you watch Ian Gordon YouTube videos, you know, his student will cast and then he'll cast, and he has so much authority with the way he casts it, and he has great technique besides. Like he owns that rod, he owns the line, he knows what he's doing, he's a machine, and that's how you have to be if you're going to cast these long lines. I'm not saying you manhandle them, but I am saying, but sometimes you really just gotta go flat and hard on the sweep, get that D-loop so tight, and so, you know, it's got to be absolutely void of tension. So you can't just put a lazy D-loop in there and then bail it out with the forward cast. Even if you're gonna float it really soft, your timing has to be good, but the anchor has to be perfect and light, and your timing has to be exquisite. With the long line, there's a lot more going on back there than you might realize, and it takes more acceleration, specifically accelerating throughout the sweep, than you might think of. So you might just try accelerating. Make sure you always got a tight, no slack in your lift, no slack in the line when you lift. Rod tips down, 0 slack, start the cast, and cast it like you own it. You got to cast it like you own it. You want some line speed in your cast, and it will never let you down, because you're going to be fishing in the wind. You're going to be making long casts. So have some authority, experiment, and when you do your lift, I don't really lift like so much like this anymore. I get like this, okay? And then when I sweep, I push out. So the lift starts here, so try that. You know, if you need to stretch out and keep that thing really tight, no slack, then you can play with a lot more casting stroke distance. It's more forgiving the longer your stroke. So keep everything tight, stretch it out. See, now if I lift, I can do a shotgun lift and then push out. You can, the thing is, I prefer starting here as opposed to this, because it gives you extra room with these longer lines. So just food for thought. Keep practicing. That's what's going to get you successful. More power to you. I hope to meet you someday. If you see me on the river, flag me down. We'll do some casting practice, video each other, all that stuff. Anyway, keep after it. Unknown caster.